Ladies and gents, welcome back once again. Y'all know what time it is. All things covered with yours truly, Patrick, Peterson, Bryant, McFadden. Outstanding jam-packed show for you guys to really laugh about, enjoy, digest. We have it here for you. Our guest, a very, very special individual for me because he was a part of the opportunity for me to play in the National Football League for the best organization in the NFL. Kevin Colbert is joining us.
Yeah, money, 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 money. Ain't that funny? I got haters. Yeah, they watching, but I know they love me. Money, 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 money. Ain't that funny? I got haters. Yeah, they watching, but I know they love me. Riding around the city, plastic cup of C-Rock. Bigger and I'm blacker. I am on that Chris Rock.
But before we get to Kevin Colbert, I'd be remiss if I didn't give you guys just a quick summary of who he is when it comes to the NFL world, right? Started his career in 1984. Yeah, Kevin, I did my research. Blesto Scout. I never heard that before, but of course it was significant to Kevin being able to go through the ranks to get to where he was when you talk about being a part of the Pittsburgh Steelers. That one-year opportunity, ladies and gents, Pat P, he parlayed that into a Miami Dolphins scouting job with the Miami Dolphins from 1985 to 1989. He left Miami, went to Detroit, became the pro scouting director for the Detroit Lions. And then, of course, in 2000, became the Steelers director of football operations from 2000 to 2010. And then they decided to give him the official general manager title for the organization. Matter of fact, what people don't understand and know is Pittsburgh never had that GM-like title within the organization. They did so with Kevin Colbert from 2010 to 2016. He had that role, of course, vice president, 2016 to 2022 when he decided to call it quits. Oh, by the way, he is a two-time Super Bowl champion, no other than the great Kevin Colbert. Kevin, how you doing? How you feeling?
I feel a lot better after all that, BMac. That was very nice of you. No, appreciate you guys.
You earned it.
No, thank you. Appreciate you guys giving me a chance to sit and talk and share some good stories.
Yes, sir.
Well, that's awesome, man. Well, like Brian said, we know that you started your coaching, your scouting career way back when. I just want to talk about when you started constructing team back in Robert Morris University in Pittsburgh. During your childhood years, like what was that time or that point in your life that you figured that you wanted to start configuring NFL's rosters?
Well, you know what, Pat? I mean, I was a very below average athlete. I knew I wasn't going to have a career, whatever sport. And I played all the sports in high school, basketball, football. I mean, I didn't I got cut in basketball, but I played football, baseball, and hockey. And then I get to Robert Morris, and then I'm the graduate assistant basketball coach, believe it or not. And it was crazy because the guy asked me to be his graduate assistant, Matt Frajanic. And I said, Coach, I got cut in high school. And he said, you're not going to coach. All you're going to do is recruit. And, basically I spent 2 years as his graduate assistant, spent 1 year as a baseball coach in that same time frame. But while doing that, I was also doing work for Blesto. And Blesto is an acronym for Bears, Lions, Steelers Talent Organization, which still exists today. But it was headquartered in Pittsburgh. And my high school football coach got me involved with that. And I was doing some intern work with them. From there, I got to move on I moved on from Blesto to Ohio Wesleyan University as a assistant football coach and baseball coach. And then I spent 2.5 years there. Then I went back to Blesto full time. And then, as BMac said, I ended up moving down with Coach Shula and the Dolphins for 5 years, and then Detroit, and then Pittsburgh. So it's been crazy. But all the way back to those times with Robert Morris when I was out recruiting, I mean, we were just out trying to sign players, and I was trying to evaluate players. And a lot of the stuff I learned in the basketball world, we still applied, and we applied in the football when we were doing that.
And, talking about the opportunity to go down to Miami, that was your first legit chance to work with the NFL organization, Kevin. What was the first big thing you learned about college scouting in the NFL?
Well, I mean, obviously you go in with big eyes because you're walking into a room with Coach Don Shula. I mean, and Coach Shula was as demanding as could be, but he was demanding on everybody. He was demanding on me as a young college scout, but he was demanding on his offensive coordinators, defensive coordinators, and his Hall of Fame players. The coach was fair, and he taught, and I learned a ton from him. But I got so many different things from Coach Shula. But one of the things that I remember him saying in a meeting, he said, "Hey, when you got red paint, paint your barn red." And I was like, holy smokes, that makes sense. What he was saying was you adapt your team to your players' talents and not vice versa. And that was something I never, ever forgot. When you got red paint, paint your barn red. As simplistic as it sounded, it really carried a lot of weight, because when you think back about Coach Shula, when he was winning Super Bowls with, Larry Zonka and Jim Kick and Brian Greasy, and then, moving on to Danny Marino, probably in my opinion, one of the best quarterbacks, if not the best in the history of the game. He was throwing the ball. So Coach knew how to take his talent and try to get the most out of it. And that was the one thing I really pulled away from that time in Miami.
And we're going to stay on the Dolphins note, because Dolphins was my favorite team growing up. So this is a two-part question. I honestly, you kind of already answered the question about Don Shula, because I was going to ask you how was it being around Don Shula, but you kind of fell into the next question on how was Dan Marino arm talent, like being up and close in person and seeing him fling the ball all around the yard. Like, what was his arm talent like?
Well, you know what, Pat, and I can go deeper than that, because when I was I just finished high school. I was going to a little junior college in Pittsburgh. I was actually helping out at my old high school, again, with the guy that got me into the Blesto. He was still coaching high school at that time. And we played, that was North Catholic High School, and Danny went to Central Catholic High School. And I got a scouting report on Danny Marino from high school that the coach wrote. So I knew Dan.
What was that scouting report? Do you remember what it?
Oh yeah, it was like, hey, this guy's good. We're gonna have trouble. But anyway, Dan, I was never there during the season. We were only there for training camp, and then I'd hit the road and be out scouting. But what Dan was extremely competitive. He and Coach, you could see those two, watching the games. They'd be competitive with each other, competitive with the other team. But I always remember, Coach Shula would call the team up, for the little group talk right before the game. And that group would break up, and Dan and Coach Shula would hug. And then it was on, because Danny was just a extreme competitor. He had the great quick release. The accuracy was pinpoint. Danny couldn't move later on in his career because he had knee injuries. And I think that's what really helped him, because Danny was a great high school athlete, basketball, baseball, football. But once he got some knee injuries, he was kind of limited to that pocket. But I think that really helped him develop that quick release, because Danny didn't play once that ball was coming out, and he made quick decisions, and he was competitive.
And Kev, everybody likes to do their comparisons, right? So who, in your mind, who is Dan Marino compared to in today's game?
Wow, today's game, and boy, today's game, the guys are getting more mobile. But I always thought Kurt Warner had that as well. Kurt would make a decision and get rid of that football. He wasn't a run guy. He wasn't a scramble guy. But, man, in today's game, most of the guys are, they can flesh out and create some stuff. You know what I mean?
About arm talent? What about just pure
arm talent? Like you said, accuracy. Like, what quarterback today? Because I have a quarterback in mind that I think that fits the statue of Dan Marino.
Boy, I'm going to have to think on that one.
And you're a GM, so I'm going to give you the name that I thought about. Who was Patrick Mahomes?
I'm an old GM now. Come on.
So Patrick Mahomes was a guy, and like I told you, I'm a Dolphin fan. So seeing what Dan Marino was able to do in the early 90s, like you said, before he had all the knee surgeries and this, that, and the other, but his arm talent and what he was able to do with the football, it was just remarkable. It was almost like you never seen that before before his time. So,
Right.
in my opinion, Patrick Mahomes is the best fit far as arm talent, far as not game management, but everything that comes with it. The arm talent, the pocket presence, quick release, making good decisions with the football, and going to put it in the right guy's hands.
Oh yeah, I mean Patrick is extremely special, and the one thing he has is that creatability. And
Right.
I go back to Brett Favre when Brett was in his prime. I think Brett would trust the system to a certain extent, and once the system broke down, the coaches trusted Brett to make a play, and I see Patrick doing that as well. Obviously, they have extremely successful system under Coach Reed, and he plays within that system, and then you see him get outside the system and just hold on because a play is about to be made. So that's the only thing I'd say would be different. Danny didn't move around and create as much, but that ball came out. I don't know if anybody matches that release.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't disagree. Dan Marino, arm talent, just I heard there were stories, of course, living down in South Florida during training camp, you can hear when the ball came out of his hand. That's just how it would, you just heard it like an out route. You heard the ball in the air whenever he released it. So one of the more talented arms that we've ever seen. And I think, a lot of people forget about how talented his arm was because we talk about the here and now, Aaron Rodgers, the Pat Mahomes, as Pat mentioned. But before those two guys, you couldn't have a conversation about arm talent without having Dan Marino's name involved in that sentence. So kudos to Dan Marino, having a great career, one of the best to ever do it. So in 2000, as I stated in your intro, you end up getting the opportunity to go back to your hometown. Before I ask this question, were you always being from Pittsburgh, were you always a Steeler fan?
Oh yeah, I mean, I grew up literally a 10-minute walk from the stadium. So yeah, Three Rivers, which of course now is Acrisure Stadium.
Yep.
The Rooney family went to the same high school that I ended up going to. No, I grew up with the Steelers, and honestly, we couldn't get tickets. They were starting to get good in those 70s. And, I heard the Immaculate Reception in my bedroom listening on a transistor radio because the game was blacked out locally.
Yep.
So all we could do was, try to listen because we couldn't get into the stadium. I mean, as close as I lived, I mean, I wasn't able to get in, let me say it like that. But no, definitely grew up and, knew the family, knew the team, and watched the success of that group for all those years.
So that had to be a surreal moment being a part of the Steelers organization, being a hometown kid rooting for the Steelers as you became the director of football operations. But I want to fast forward to 2 years, right? This is a two-part question for you. I want to fast forward to 2003, off-season draft time, right? And that year was very, very special, not just to you individually, but to the entire organization because you traded up to go get my former teammate, one of the best to ever do it, Hall of Famer TP, Troy Polamalu. And a move that a lot of people question because you were in the back end of the 20s. You had to trade up to 16 to go get him. Many people thought that was a bit risky. And, of course, it all worked out. But when did you know, after making that trade, when did you kind of get that reassurance like, yo, that was the right thing to do? We hit. We hit it dead on the money. That was the right thing to do. And then I have another follow-up to your answer also.
Yeah, I mean, you never make a trade in the drafts. When you're in the draft room, you never make a trade to a certain spot unless that player is there. Once Troy was available at that pick, we of course made that trade. And when did we know Troy was Troy? We didn't probably until that second year because, again, you grew up in the same system and it wasn't easy. And Troy had to find his way. And it took him a year to do it, but you could see the special talents while he was doing it. But we went into that, we actually almost signed a free agent that year, Dexter Jackson, who was, Dexter was the MVP of the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. He was with Coach Tomlin, but of course, Coach wasn't with us. We weren't able to get Dexter signed, so we kept looking for that strong safety type. And Troy was phenomenal. We knew we weren't going to get him at pick 27. So we started, making those calls. You usually start making those calls mid-April, leading up to the draft, and we were able to find a partner in Kansas City and a third and a sixth to move up, and it kind of worked out because Troy was special. But it took Troy a good year to figure out the system and start to become who he was.
Yeah. So the second part of my question, the next year, 2004, you talk about having back-to-back impactful draft players instantly. That was you. You had an eye for talent. So in 2004, of course, we all know you drafted Big Ben. He was the third quarterback to come off the board behind Eli Manning and Phillip Rivers. But for you personally, within your war room, where was he on your draft board? Was Big Ben like your number one QB on your draft board, or was it all about depending on who falls where when you look at knowing you need to go get a quarterback?
Well, again, we never thought Ben would make it to us at 11, quite honestly. There was three guys, and we knew that, Eli was going to go first, whether he went to San Diego at that time or the Giants, wherever. He was coming off first. We really believed that. We knew that Phillip Rivers was going to ascend because Phillip had gone to the Senior Bowl, and he played for Coach Schottenheimer at the Senior Bowl. And you could just see that the Chargers were really falling in love with Phillip during that week at the Senior Bowl. So we didn't think there was any chance that either one of those two would come. But honestly, we thought all three of them were special. If one made it to us, great. We never thought the first two would. And then even Ben is, at 11. I mean, no way. No way did we think he would make it to us. It was a very easy pick, an easy discussion. Wasn't even a discussion. It was just a pick at that point.
Right.
And I tell you this, my Pat Pete, following the Steelers, when it comes draft time, they always have the best luck. A player that they've been wanting falls into their lap. That's usually the case. And Kevin, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You talk about having some of the best luck during draft time. I don't know if there's another organization that has been more lucky than the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Well, we found you in the second round. Now, come on.
Hey, that's going into my follow-up. I want to stick on this draft tip. In 2005, you guys drafted BMac, my cousin. I was there down there in Hollywood, Florida, in the second round. What was it about BMac game that made you comfortable in picking him? And also, two-part question: during his rookie season, when was that point for you was like, all right, we got the right guy in the second round?
Yeah, I really can't give you one of those times in that, that rookie season, but I can go back to that draft prep. And I don't even know if BMac remembers this. We go down for his pro day, and we had to walk halfway across Florida State's campus to go over to the track. And we went over to the rubber track because we wanted to get a good time on BMac, and we did. And he knows what I'm talking about because BMac was an extra special player more than he was an extra special athlete. And I'm not taking anything away from his athletic ability, but BMac was a football player, and we valued that. And his ability to make plays in the passing game, in the run game, special teams, whatever, that was very attractive to us. And then that second round, again, that was an easy pick. But literally we walked from the football stadium all the way across the baseball stadium and over to the track. And we were up in the track. Rosie Barnes, his agent at that time, was sitting with us trying to get us to get a good time. I said, Rosie, we got this. No more. We like it. But then, BMac turned himself into a starting player that helped us win, not one Super Bowl, but two. He makes a critical play. We have the fumble. Never forget. Oh, yeah, at Indy. And Peyton goes after BMac, and BMac stood tall.
3 times straight, right?
Yeah, well, I know you made 2 plays. I can't remember him going 3. You may have overthrown.
It was two straight.
Oh, 2 straight. Okay.
Yeah. But it was there, and he made the plays. He accepted that challenge, and those were monumental plays in that Super Bowl season. So when he came back to us the second time around, it was good. He provided that leadership, and again, we got 2 rings together, and I'm always going to be thankful for him for that.
Mm. No doubt about it.
Hey, Kev. As you know, I know you visited Tallahassee since then. You don't have to do that long walk anymore. They got an indoor facility now.
I know. That's right. They took away. Hey, and
They
you
got
know
a lot
what?
of money now. The money is rolling around real good in Tallahassee. They got an indoor.
I know, but they took away Coach Bowden's tree.
Yep.
I mean, it broke my heart because you
The
guys
tree.
used to gather.
Yes.
Pat, if you ever saw that, coach would pull the team up.
Mm-hmm.
And I always watched it from a distance because we respected, that was your time when you were there scouting them.
Right.
We'd go over, but Coach Bowden would be over there talking to the team. They'd all be kneeling. What kind of tree was that? Wasn't
That's
an
like
oak?
a big oak wood tree or something. That was the only shade we had, so that's why he would always have us talk.
No, but
And,
it was.
and Matt, was that the one that was right between the fields?
Yep,
'Cause I,
yep, the big one.
okay, yeah, I remember
Yep,
that
the big
tree.
one.
That tree.
I always thought that was like really cool. And when they built the indoor, they took it down, and I was like, man, I don't know. I would have tried to save that, or at least put up a little monument, because I always thought that was cool the way he'd get you guys over there before each practice and just talk to you.
Yep.
You remember little special things like that.
Yeah, Coach Bowden was a special guy. Hey, Pat, on this one, I know you wanted to hit this one, but I always wanted to know this answer to this question, and I'm pretty sure our viewers would like to know as well. During your time, especially when you were there, Kevin, you guys were so successful in drafting wide receivers. I mean, it didn't matter. Of course, you didn't take a lot in the first round. First round wide receivers that I can remember, of course, Plexico, Santonio. Throughout your tenure, I mean, Santonio definitely was first, but outside of that, talking about hitting on wide receivers, no, I don't think has been another successful organization in doing that at that position. Why were you so successful in drafting wide receivers for the Steelers?
You know what? I don't know, BMac. I mean, we missed on a few as well, and there's different reasons why you hit or why you miss on whatever position. But we were fortunate. We got some special receivers. We inherited Hines was there before I got there, but we had a special room. And when you have a special quarterback, not to take anything away from any of the wideouts, but that helps. But there were some special guys. And, the year I always look at is the year we got Emmanuel Sanders in the 3rd round. And then we got AB, Antonio Brown, in the 6th. And really, we had those guys graded together because we thought they'd both be really good receivers. When we took Emmanuel, he was a senior. We had seen him in the East-West All-Star game. We knew a little bit more about him. AB was coming out as an underclassman. We didn't quite know as much about him. So we took Emmanuel in the 3rd round, but then when AB was there in the 6th round, it was, we didn't want to go back on another position we'd already taken, but he was just too good to pass up. And obviously, they both turned into special NFL wide receivers. And, you were there when AB's rookie year. Kind of like Troy, it took him a year to figure things out and learn it. But, man, he used to give you guys fits in practice because – running the cards, I mean, he was that good that early. And then when he became a part of the offense, he became the special player he was. And as did Emmanuel. Emmanuel didn't finish with us, but, those were 2 pretty good ones in that season or that draft.
Man, and man, it's crazy, Kev, that you seem to find a way to always lead up into the next question that's coming towards you. So let's stay on AB. AB is one of the best receivers that the Steelers ever had. But what made him so special? And also, when did you realize that he was destined for greatness?
As I mentioned, Pat, in his rookie year, he's running cards, scout team, doing some returning, but you could see those qualities showing up in practice because he was a handful. But the thing that separated AB was his work ethic. I mean, he might not have been the first in the building, but boy, when he got there, he was it was on. And on the practice field, every rep he was trying to win, and he was trying to dominate. And for the most part, he would. I mean, he was the same competitor on practice field that he was on game day, and that was unusual. He had unusual skill. AB's not the biggest guy, but boy, he played big and made big plays that he probably shouldn't have made with his size. But It was just that he was strong for for a smaller guy. He was obviously quick. He wasn't a speed burner. I mean, he'd just outrun you
But he
because
played fast as well, though.
he played fast, right? Because he was so competitive. But AB would leave the facility after practice and he'd go down to LA Fitness or wherever he worked out and continue to work out. I mean, his work ethic was special, and that
And
really made
that
him a special
that's
guy.
crazy you say that, Kev, because I had the opportunity to play a couple Pro Bowls with AB, and we all know how Pro Bowl practices are, right? It's very chill, nonchalant. Everybody's just going through the motion. So this was the first time I've ever played in the Pro Bowl with AB. It was in Arizona. I can't remember the exact year. I think it probably was 2016,
That was
maybe
the second Super
15.
Bowl of the Patriots in Seattle, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, so maybe 16. So AB comes out to his first practice. You know how practice is in the Pro Bowls, Kevin. Like, we ain't got no helmets on. We just got shirts on. AB comes out there with his helmet and his shoulder pads on. And we're just running routes on the air. We're just going to guy, and AB is running 100 miles per hour. I was like, have this guy been to a Pro Bowl before? But they was like, nah, that's just AD. That's just how he's wired.
Yeah.
And when I first saw him from that moment, I was like, yeah, this guy's different. He's special. His work ethic is different. And he just loves the game of football. Because, like, you know, in that time during Pro Bowl, it's vacation time. This game don't mean anything. But to AB, he was like, this is another game to prove that I'm the best on the football field. And he showed that throughout practice. And also he came out there on Sunday or Saturday, whenever the game was, and put on a great performance as well.
Oh
So
yeah.
I
He
can
was.
vouch for that as well.
Yeah, and BMac lived it. It was every day in practice. I mean, every rep. I mean, and he wouldn't. I mean, he wouldn't hold back. I mean, he'd let you
Right.
know if he beat you, and he'd make you think about the next one, and he'd demand more out of you. Like, come on, you got to be better than that. And
Right.
he was that special every day. I mean, Coach always liked to say, Coach Tomlin I always liked to say, I'd rather say whoa than sick 'em, and you never had to say sick 'em with AB because he was like that as soon as he hit the building.
Real
Love
quick
it.
with you, Kevin, and Pat, I know you got a follow up. When we were just all together for Troy's event in Pittsburgh, supporting Troy and Theodore, I had an opportunity to catch up with Byron Leftwich. And we were talking ball, talking wide receivers. And of course, Byron played with Antonio in Pittsburgh and he coached him in Tampa.
And Tampa,
And
yeah.
he literally said, if things would have worked out like how they were supposed to, AB was going to blow any other comparison away. And he stated, based on what he saw, and this is Byron Leftwich's words, this is B Left's words. He said AB is the best to ever do it at the wide receiver position. He said people can throw out Rice, can throw out Moss. He said AB, when you talk about pound for pound, playing the wide receiver position, as consistent as he was, as dominant as he was, and every game you knew what you were going to get from him. It didn't matter, especially taking a year and a half off, coming down to Tampa and not missing a beat. He said he's the best he ever seen. So,
Yeah.
Kevin, I asked you that question in regard because I don't disagree. I saw him personally in practice. I saw him as a fan watching TV. I never seen AB just lose battles. So for you drafting him, what do you say when hearing, as I quoted B Left about Antonio Brown?
Yeah, I mean, as we talked about earlier, he could play big, for a guy that was 5'10" and a half. I mean, but I didn't know he could play big. The Central Michigan offense, he was a lot of short running catch type stuff. But once he got to the league, you saw that he could beat the press. He's in and out of the breaks, man coverage, it don't matter, zone coverage, he's going to find a hole, catch the short one, take it long. Catch in the middle, he didn't care. Get deep, he got deep somehow, but he wasn't a burner. I
Right.
believe AB ran in the low 4.5s, but somehow he could get deep. When you talk about Jerry Rice didn't clock a great 40 time, but
They did.
a lot of times with wide receivers, we underestimate how long they can run fast. If you follow me, you know what I mean? Like some guys can go from 0 to 30 yards and then they kind of lose their
Got down.
gas.
Yep.
those guys, AB and Jerry Rice, would run by anybody. But he could carry that. He could carry his 40 speed for 60,
You're
70
right.
yards. And
Yep.
it
You
was
just said
something
something
that I
just then.
learned.
And that's
How long
football
can you
speed.
run fast?
Oh,
That's
yeah.
football speed. That's football speed right there.
Yeah, carrying the pads, and that's different. I mean, we all get caught up in 40 speeds, and I'm still going to be the old school and just show me. Let's watch the film. Who's getting deep? Who's making the plays? And AB could do that in every phase of wide receiver play. And the thing he developed was that ability to make that contested catch against corners that were bigger than he. And he
Right.
just knew how to position, how to concentrate. The one thing that he was exceptional at, and I learned quickly because later on in my career, I'd stay down on the field. His toe tap ability was ridiculous. I mean,
Yeah.
it got to a point
Awareness.
we didn't even have to think about it, look at or need a replay. If AB said, "Hey, I'm in, coach," he wouldn't throw the flag. And if he got called out, and boy, that was special abilities. His ability to get his feet down was second to none.
So do you think AB is a Hall of Famer?
Yes.
I agree. I agree
Yeah,
100%.
I
yeah, we
agree.
were talking about that at when we were at Troy's event. I think that's I don't think that can even be debated.
No question.
Right.
No question. No,
I
I
agree.
agree with you. So
Mhm.
love to hear what our viewers say. Chime in our comment section. But great player. However you want to talk about what happened. No, when he's on the football field, give me AB. We're gonna win ball games. We're gonna
Yep.
win ball games. Another great pick for you, and I think you took him in the second round, Le'Veon Bell. Another great pick out of Michigan State. Tell us a little bit about the contract situation with Le'Veon that led to him sitting out a year and then eventually leaving the organization, the Steelers organization, and signing with the New York Jets.
Yeah, Le'Veon was, in the system he played in Michigan State. And that's when football was kind of changing. We were getting away from pro systems, spreads and different types of running lanes and fits and so on and so forth. But, Le'Veon played in a pro system at Michigan State. So you saw him making NFL type runs in the Big Ten. We'd always talk. El Bell would get, he'd get 3 yards and fall forward for 2 more. All of a sudden, it's 2nd and 5. He may not have had, a bunch of 50-yard runs, but he's getting me first down runs. And then his ability to run a route and catch the ball was exceptional. And he took it upon himself. I believe when we drafted him, he was right around that 240 range. And then he came back in that second year, right around 225. And the athletic ability really started to show up without losing any of the grit running the football. So obviously he created a market for himself. We tried to get a contract done, and unfortunately we didn't. And it was disappointing. I saw Le'Veon came to one of our games last year, and we hug and talk, and he's doing good. And we wish him good. I wish he would have stayed with us for his whole career because it could have been special. Because you guys know this: if you take a year off in your career, it's hard to get back out there, whether it's an injury or, when you get into that low and you try to kick it back in, it's hard. And, I don't think he found the same traction. And I was disappointed for him. We tried to move on and we did the best we could and we wished him luck. But I wish we would have had him, but we didn't. And that's just the way this thing goes sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very unfortunate because Le'Veon Bell was definitely a special running back, and also I feel like he fit you guys' system so well because late in the year we knew what you guys was doing. We knew you guys were going to be running the ball downfield, and we knew also Le'Veon was going to find the open gap or the seam to help break him free. But I got a question for you about assembling the 2 Super Bowl teams in 2005 and 2008. And which Super Bowl team made you the proudest?
Wow. They both did, honestly, Pat. And, you can sit there and we can say, well, we went into this plan. We were going to draft this guy, that guy, this position. We have so much money in offense and so much. And all that is, I don't believe in any of that. What you do is you try to get the best players you can. Sometimes it's a system fit, but you get the best players you can. And then the great coaches that we had in Coach Cowher and Coach Tomlin, as we talked about with Coach Shula, they take those players and mold their systems around them. So I can't say we went in with any great plans. I mean, we had a franchise quarterback, and that's a great start. And then we just try to add as many good players as we could. When I watched the Steelers in the 70s, their first 2 Super Bowls, they were special on defense, and their offense was coming together. The second 2 Super Bowls, after the 2 years off in between, their defense had aged a little bit, and it was coming on the downside, but Terry Bradshaw and those wide receivers and Franco were just starting to take off, and they won those games with offense. Not to say their defense wasn't there, because Joe Green would choke me, but obviously it was a different team at that stage. So I think you go into it and, we can say all these great plans, but boy, just get the best players you can that are good people and they're healthy and they're team players, and let your coaches put them together, and let's go. And we were fortunate enough to come out with 2.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Disappointed we didn't get that third one, but
man, I know. I wish you guys would have got that third one for sure, because I was definitely pulling for my guy BMac, and you guys for sure. That was the one in Dallas, right? BMac?
Yeah, unfortunately,
Bay.
Pat. That was Green Bay. That was we spotted them. I think we spotted them like 10 or 13 points and fought back and lost by 6.
Yeah, Aaron Rodgers was so pinpoint that day. There's 3 plays. He puts one right past William Gay's ear on the sideline.
Yep.
He puts one right past down the seam, and then Ryan, he's getting ready to pick him off at free safety.
That's what I'm thinking about, Ryan Clark. Yep.
Brett RC was that close to taking it the other way, and it's a touchdown. But you guys, you've lived that. And that's how close this game is. And, Aaron Rodgers was special that day, and congrats to the Green Bay. They beat us.
No question. Yeah. Unfortunately.
Unfortunately.
Kevin, question for you. Since 2000, do you remember how many players you drafted?
No.
I have the answer for you. So I'm happy to give you some knowledge about your career that you were not aware of. Since 2000, you drafted 176 players.
Wow.
For your last draft, which was 2022, right?
Yeah.
So just me being a football head and knowing you were coming on, I wanted to give you my top 10 players you drafted.
All right.
Yeah. So, and you can let me know, and of course our viewers, our Steeler fans that are chiming in, let me know if I hit it dead on the head, or if I missed a few guys out. Out of 176, it's hard to put the top 10 together, but I tried my best. So coming in at 10, my former teammate, Ike Taylor. Now, the reason why I have Ike Taylor at 10, he might not have received the accolades that a lot of these other guys receive that's in my top 10, but you talk about being extremely, pivotal in our success, being a late round draft pick. I think he was a 4th rounder, kind of figuring things out, becoming one of the stalwarts in our secondary for years to come. I think he started over 140 games. And I think that's tied for the most by a 4th rounder in Steeler history. And being a part of 2 Super Bowl championships, I had to be in my top 10. And that's my boy, of course. But just starting that many ball games, following opposing teams' number 1 guy week in and week out, only if he can catch the football.
Yeah.
That's it.
Ike had frying pans, man.
Man, listen, if Ike just caught a few of them, you'd be talking about Ike as a Hall of Famer, because he had everything else one could want playing the cornerback position. So he's my number 10.
All right, so let's go back to the other night back at the stadium. Pat, if you would have seen it, Ike had a chance to intercept one in the post, and he didn't. And he goes down, and he hit his head off the turf. I was a little worried about it.
I thought he got concussed.
Yes, but then he grabbed his leg, because that's what he used to do when it maybe hit his head a little bit, and we shouldn't talk about it because it was serious. But he's like, I'm all right. But I'll say this, in the Super Bowl against Seattle, when he makes the pick, I think we all kind of said, hey, guys, this is our night, because Ike just made a special play, and that it stopped some momentum on a very, game situation type drive, and that was big. I don't know if I can rank them, but Ike was a special player, self-made guy, non-combine, running back in college until his senior year. And he grew into a very good NFL corner.
Yep. Okay. So I got Ike at 10. My ninth best player that in my top 10 that coming in number 9 is Lawrence Timmons. I think Lawrence Timmons is super underappreciated based on what he did while playing for the Steelers. You talk about fitting a mentality, playing the inside back position, either the Mac or the Buck. You got to be wired differently. You got to be ready to stick your face in the fan.
You got to be ready.
And Law Dog is what we used to call him, because he would put that head on you. We used to call him Browl as well, because he would literally hit you right here. He was a tone setter, not just in run support, but also coverage as well. So Lawrence is my ninth player in the top 10. Number 8, Le'Veon Bell. We talked about Le'Veon. I felt like Le'Veon, when you mentioned Le'Veon Bell in the Steelers uniform, he was one of the best running backs to do it. Running the football, catching the football, he changed the running back position to something that we've never seen before with his patient running style, and we still haven't seen yet to this date in the NFL. So Le'Veon is at 8. Number 7, Casey Hampton. Casey Hampton, another guy who did not receive a lot of accolades, but to us, overly important. Casey was like the transmission for your car. If you don't have a transmission, I don't care what kind of engine you got, you're not going nowhere. For our defense, everything started with Casey Hampton. He's at 7. 6, Marquise Pouncey. Day one starter, instantly consistent. When we drafted him, it was like he has it. We instantly knew he was special. And you talk about the legends that played the center position for Pittsburgh, that's a pressure position for our organization, because you have greats that have played that position, and Marquise fit right in instantly for the organization. Number 5, he's still playing to this day, Cam Hayward. Cam Hayward, he gets better with time, like wine. He aged with greatness, still doing it to this day. And Kevin, when you play on our defensive line, as Pat know as well, you got to be able to do a lot of different things. You got to be able to two gap. You got to be able to get people off of you. You got to be able to keep our backers clean. Technique, he has it. Skill set, he has it. And he has the mentality. Now, at 4, this is where it gets tricky. At 4, I went Antonio Brown. And the reason why I went Antonio Brown is because when he left, he still had a lot to give us. He still had a lot to give us. A ton to give us. And for whatever reason, it didn't work out. He left, still dominated. But just when he was there, he still had a lot to give us. But he's my 4th best player you drafted. At 3, TJ Watt. TJ is going to go down as the best pass rusher in Steeler history and as one of the best defensive players in Steeler history when it's all said and done. If TJ was to end his career today, please, TJ, don't even think about doing that. I know I saw you a few weeks ago, so of course you're still thinking about playing, but you got many more years. He's first ballot right now.
Yeah.
No debate. Yeah. No debate. First ballot right now. At 2, this is where it might get a little spooky for some, but for me, I went TP. I went Troy Polamalu. We know about his greatness, first ballot Hall of Famer, champion, legendary player, wherever go down as one of the NFL greats. But he came in at 2 because, number 1, when you drafted Ben, you changed the course of the organization. You talk about putting together the best team to assemble to compete for a championship. If you don't have a quarterback, you don't have a shot. You don't have a shot. And Ben, even his rookie year, he was 14-1. Like, all he did was win ball games. Super steady, consistent, champion, will be a first ballot Hall of Famer as well. And he made he's my number 1 for you when you look at all the players you drafted. And when I look at my list, Ben is going to be in the Hall of Fame. So now we're going to give you some praise, Kevin, if that's okay. You can go ahead and, you don't need no humble pie right now. We go ahead and give you the flowers. Ben's going to be a Hall of Famer. Troy's already in the Hall. TJ going to be going to be in the Hall. AB, we already agreed, depending on whoever you talk, I can care less. AB should get into the Hall of Fame. That's 4. When Cam Hayward retires, he is going into the Hall. Marquise Pouncey,
Hall.
he's getting in, right? Will he be a first ballot? I don't know, but he's
He gonna
getting
get
in
in though.
for sure. Of course, when you look at Casey won't get in because of the accolades, but he is a Steeler legend. Anybody that knows ball and knows how important that nose tackle is in 3-4 defenses, you will not have a conversation without mentioning Casey Hampton's name. And of course, I think if Le'Veon played his whole career in Pittsburgh, he would be a Hall of Famer as well. But I just counted 6.
6.
One already is in. 6 bona fide, legit Hall of Famers for you, Kevin, throughout your time in Pittsburgh. And just hearing that list, number one, what do you think of my top 10? And number two, how does it feel to know that your job, it changed so many people for the better, for an organization, and just your success rate was something that a lot of people don't really talk about?
Yeah, and I appreciate that, Big Mac. And honestly, you don't really sit back and think too much about it. I think of the common denominator among all those great players, and they were good football players. Some were special athletes, but they all loved the game of football and they competed, and they were all team guys. Okay, you might have a bickering here and there, and so what? That's how great teams. That's how great teams win championships. They come together at the right time, and that group has, and they've shown that ability too. I wish they all would have gotten the Super Bowls because that kind of puts that icing on the cake, and I think that helps in their causes for, Hall of Fame and so on and so forth. But they're not all going to get in. It doesn't take anything away from them as great players. And I think they are all great players. I couldn't get into rating them. I just know they came together for their individual squads. And it's like you said, Cam and TJ are still doing it at this level. And they're special guys. But the common denominator is they were all good football players. They might not have been, the biggest, the fastest, but there was something in them that made them great players. And I think that's the one thing when we look back at it, when we always tried to study, and we would study on our hits and misses. The guys that showed up are the guys they were just good football players. And some of them were bigger and faster. And if you get caught up in all that stuff, it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? If you're not a good football player, the height, weight, speed, it doesn't matter. Give us the great players, and they'll come together with great coaches, and they'll win Super Bowls.
That's dope. And I'll take you guys back real quick on my exit meeting with Coach Tomlin, and he told me his biggest regret on his coaching career was to not get Marquise Pouncey a Super Bowl ring. I don't know if he ever shared that with you, Kev, but he shared that with me, and because he kind of put us in the same boat. He was like, man, obviously you're in year 13. I know how much you love the game, how much you care about the game. My biggest regret of my coaching career was not being able to give Marquise an opportunity to win a championship.
Wow. And that, you know what, Pat, that's real, because I know, Coach, you want that for all your players.
Right.
I go back the year when we talked about the game in Dallas against Green Bay. That season, Willie Colon was our starting right tackle. And Willie tore his Achilles in the springtime, this time of year, working out. And he was done for the year. And, try to find a starting right tackle. We didn't have one in the system that we had drafted because Willie was in, I forget, he might have been in year 5 or 6. He was still a young ascending tackle. And we didn't have a younger guy to come in and play. And we signed Flozell Adams. Flozell had a great career in Dallas. And, Flo ends up coming in, and he gave us everything he could because he was, he had some wear and tear on his body after I forget how many years he had played. And we get to that Super Bowl, and I'll never forget being in that locker room and, being on the wrong side of the confetti. It sucks, and it's just, it's bad. And I remember seeing Flozell, and it crushed me because Flo's in Dallas. This is his home, his new home. And he's sitting in a losing locker room, and we knew it was over. And that, you don't forget that. You don't forget that. I later on in my career, when I saw Danny Marino after the fact, and I said, Dan, I apologize. We didn't get a Super Bowl in Miami. And then I saw Barry Sanders, and Barry and I were together for 9 years in Detroit, and I said, "Hey, Barry, I'm so sorry we couldn't get it done, because you know how special it is, and you just wish you could get that for all the great players, but it doesn't take away from a player's greatness. I mean, you're going to experience that. I know that's still gnawing at you, and you want to get that one more shot just to get
Right.
that, and that's great to chase it." But it's never going to take away from what you've been able to do in your career. But it's kind of nice when you win them. I ain't going to lie. And BMac,
Hey,
he
that
knows
bling bling is that bling bling sounds a
it's
whole
just
lot different
something.
on your own finger, huh?
Yeah, it's just something that you have for the rest of your life. That's one
Yeah.
thing. I remember in Detroit after we won that game. We just said this is with us for the rest of our lives, and you just wish everybody could experience because it's that special. And I know Coach felt that way about Marquise, because Pounce is a special player. Like BMac said, it was from day one. He was a day one starter.
Mhm.
Yeah. All right. So, Kevin, before we let you go, we're going to transition to the superlative part of our show. We got 4 questions for you. We want your honest, unbiased answer. 4 rapid fire questions. Pat P, you got the first one.
First one, late round draft pick that surprised you the most.
Well, I mean, we talked about AB, and again, that's a 6th round pick. And I used to tell the scouts, "Hey, don't brag because we hit on a 6th rounder. If we'd have known he was that good, we should have taken him in the 1st round." But AB was special. But Brett Kiesel as a 7th rounder, Keese turned into a Pro Bowl player. And when we drafted Keese, he was a little undersized out of BYU, but he had that work ethic, that toughness. He learned. He covered kicks his first 2 years. He was special. And we had a special defensive line coach named John Mitchell who retired. And Mitch made a lot of great players,
Yes, he did.
special players, and Brett Kiesel was one of them as a 7th rounder.
Yep. Okay.
We
I
can't
got one
forget
for you.
about we can't forget about 7B or 7C. That's what we called Kelvin Beachum. Big Beach was
Yeah.
a tackle out of
Oh,
out of SMU, and I think was at year 13.
I think he's still playing for Arizona, right?
Yeah, but he was an undersized
yeah,
left tackle. We tried him at center and guard, but Beach had
yeah. I play with
he had
Kevin.
6 foot. He had 6'6" legs and a 5'10" upper body, but Beach was a
'Cause,
special player too.
yeah,
We called him
Beach came.
7C because we had 2 picks that year.
Yeah, he got drafted by the Jets, if I'm not mistaken, right?
No, we drafted Beach. That's why we call him
Yeah.
Oh,
7C.
He took
you
him in the
guys
7th round.
drafted Beach, and then he ended up going to the Jets after that.
Yeah, Jetson in Arizona.
Gotcha.
In Arizona.
Okay.
Okay. That's a good one. That's a good name. Yeah, Beach, man. And not super talented, but he got the job done.
Oh,
Yeah.
smart and tough.
Yeah.
He's consistent. Very
Yeah, he got
consistent.
the job done. When you look at Beach, you're like, how are you blocking these guys that are 6'5", 300 plus, and you're doing so, play in and play out. But he just found a way to get the job done.
Yeah.
Well, when you looked at Beach, and we used to do this on the sidelines, I mean, we'd look at him and Mike Adams. Mike was one of our tackles. Mike was 6'8". But when they stood side by side, their waistlines were equal. And that's why I said Beach had long legs and a short torso.
Wow.
And we tried him at center because he was so smart, but it was just unnatural. At guard, it's different at guard. Your angles are different. Your assignments, you
Yeah.
have space to play with. And Beach could play left tackle, and he shouldn't have been able to. You guys had the same age.
Yep. Yep.
And the great Eugene Parker.
No
Great
question.
folks.
No
Oh
question.
yeah. R.I.P. Eugene.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I got one for you. Privately, something that wasn't public news that we didn't hear about, but privately, who was a player you wanted to draft but didn't, and who was a player you wanted to sign via free agency but didn't get a chance to?
Wow. I can't really say like draft. Boy, I wish we would have gotten him because, we were happy with who we could get. And we knew we weren't going to get everybody.
Yep.
So, the guy that obviously haunted us for the whole decade or 2 decades was Tom Brady. Everybody missed on Tom, and he gets drafted in the 6th round, and we're chasing him from 2000 on, and obviously he was special, and I think we're not the only ones they kind of look at that and say, wow, we all kind of missed, including New England. Let's be honest. They took him in 6, but as I said about AB, I mean, if we'd all known it was that great, he would have been the number 1 pick off the board. But, you got to give the credit to the player as well, because they make themselves into the great Hall of Fame Super Bowl champions that they are.
Yeah. Hey, so going back to the Tom Brady question, because we all talk about, well, fans always talk about who was more important to each other, the quarterback or the head coach, this, that, and other. But do you think Tom, obviously he proved it in Tampa, but that's later on in his career. But do you think Tom Brady would have been as successful as he was with Bill Belichick with another head coach?
I don't know how you answer that, because they were never apart until, like you said, when Tom went down to Tampa and he did it again, and then you're like, wow, that was really special, especially at an advanced age. So that just added to his greatness. Together, they're unmatched. I mean, 6 Super Bowls. I mean, that's ridiculous. So how could you compare those two apart from each other? You got 1 year with Tom at that special run that they had in Tampa, and I guess you could argue that, but I think you have to respect and understand that together, that was something that may not ever happen again. And unfortunately, we were all kind of chasing that in the AFC, because they were that good, and it was tough, and it was year in and year out. We knew we had to be able to compete with them. So collectively, they were super special, and that was tough to watch.
And as a kid, obviously, during that time I was 10. 10, between 10 and 16 years old, between the height of my, preteen ages. But as a football fan, I feel like both of those guys made each other better and the older they got, because in the early part of Tom Brady's career, he needed Coach Belichick, right? And so then after whatever the year it was for Tom to finally, all right, I got this, or I found my way. And then that's when it started to turn into, like, not the Tom Brady show, but it was almost like, all right, I got this, coach. I understand what the plan is, but now I can make it even better as a coach on the field.
And the
So,
thing
and I think that's what helped him later on in his career with Tampa, because he's been with Belichick for so many years. He saw the way that it took to win ball games. He understood, if the defense plays well, if the offense don't turn the ball over, that's going to produce into winning football. So I feel like they both capitalize off each other.
There's no question. But the thing that I really admired about New England's run, was it wasn't one run; it was 2 runs. I mean, they had the early part in the early 2000s, and it kind of mulled around, and then all of a sudden they found it again, and that was special. I mean, to be able to surround that special player and come back with a winning formula, that was special. The Steelers kind of did that with it in the 70s, because they won 2. They were out of it not out of it, but they weren't the Super Bowl team for 2 years, and then they came back and they got it. You know what I mean? And we had that little run in there. I mean, we got 2, almost got 3, but we couldn't grasp that again, and that drove us crazy, because like we talked about earlier, being on the wrong side of that confetti, it hurts, and you carry that with you, and you want that, because once you win it, there's nothing else that compares. Winning a game, okay, cool, that's over with. Okay, we won the division. Yeah, so what? We're in the playoffs. Okay, great. Well, we're here. No, talk about it when you win the Super Bowl, because that's all that matters once you do it. There's nothing else to compare.
But Mac, hold on. Before we get into our superlatives, because I love ball. So I'm going back to Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, and also Coach Tomlin, because I had the opportunity to be with him, last year. And you guys always hear the saying of, doing, I forget how he said it, but doing the simple. It kind of was a cliche of just doing.
Make routine plays happen
There you
routinely.
go. Make routine plays routinely.
Yeah.
So when you go back and watch Tom Brady and Bill Belichick is an defense guru, correct?
Yep.
Tom Brady is the guy who's going to take what you're going to give him, no matter what the situation is. He's just going to take what you're going to give him, and we're just going to stick to the strip no matter what, because we feel like the opposing team don't have the patience enough to stick to the slow grinder.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the same thing that hit me with Coach Tomlin when we was in training camp. And he said this throughout OTAs and mini camp, but it really hit me in training camp when he said, make the routine plays routinely. And he showed a couple clips of like literally a simple out route that you're supposed to catch, or a simple out route that you should complete, a simple drag route that you should hit. And that was the whole thing. When I went to think about it, that was Tom Brady and Bill Belichick motto the whole entire run. Routine plays, make routine plays routinely. And what made them successful.
And like you mentioned, probably early in his career, because Coach Belichick, obviously his background was defense, but he probably taught Tom Brady, hey, this is what the defense is going to try to do to you. And then this is how you can attack that. And then Tom would, probably later on in his career was saying, Coach, I think we can attack that because, of the offensive prowess that he had at that stage. So I'm guessing they complemented each other throughout. And I bet you they competed against each other every day in practice as well.
No doubt about it.
I'm just making a guess on that because, Coach Tomlin's like that. Coach Tomlin makes practice fun, but he makes it competitive as heck.
Super competitive.
Yeah, and he's a classic code holder. He's one of them guys like, you gonna let him do that to you? Hey, did you see what he just did to you? What are you gonna do about that? He starts the fights and holds the coats.
One of my favorite sayings from Coach last year, late in the year, he was like, man, if you can't do it, we might as well get a bridge builder to do this.
Oh, yeah. He wasn't afraid, but he said it in a constructive manner. When you got behind closed doors, you saw a different side of Coach. We hear about players coach and so on and so forth. Now, Coach is a demanding coach, and he's not afraid. I'm sure you saw the news, and you made the news, and you were going to be on the front page, and he was going to show you. Oh yeah, what you did good and what you did bad, but he wasn't afraid to challenge you in a way that the public probably doesn't know because Coach holds that for that meeting place. What he displays on the fields during practice or games, I know it's different when he gets behind closed doors, and especially when he gets one-on-one because Coach Tomlin's going to say it and spell it out as it is, and he's going to demand. He's going to demand greatness when he sees greatness in a player. He wants it to come out of him.
100%.
Yeah. So last one I have for you with this question, and you talked about Coach Tomlin. You had the luxury of coaching with being a part of three great coaches, 3 Hall of Famers. I mean, Mike Tomlin is not in the Hall, but we know that's where he's destined when it's all said and done. You worked with Don Shula, Bill Cowher, Mike Tomlin. So I have 3 categories. Right? You have 3 names. I want you to put each coach in a category in regards to draft rooms. You've been a part of these rooms with these coaches near and far, but when you look at demonstrative, which coach will you put next to that word when you talk about being a part of the draft in the draft room?
They were all, it's funny, they all started their careers as young coaches, and they grew, and they all appreciated the personnel side of it. In Miami, Coach Shula was the boss. We didn't have a general manager. We had personnel folks that worked with Coach Shula, but he was in tune with with that process. And like I said, he was tough. He was tough on me as a young scout, but he was just as tough on his coordinators. And he'd ask them the same questions he'd ask me in a very demanding, never demeaning kind of way, because he knew what he wanted for his football team. Coach Cowher kind of came up under that same school of thought because, Coach Cowher was under Marty Schottenheimer, and Coach Schottenheimer had a lot of the same traits that Coach Shula. Yeah.
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 And then Coach Tomlin, obviously, his professional mentor was Coach Dungy, who grew up in the Steelers system as well. So all three of them had a great desire to be part of the process. Again, I got more involved on a one-to-one with Coach Cowher and Coach Tomlin, as the GM and the head coach, and saw them more in detail for longer amounts of time. But that common denominator of they loved the draft process, but they were looking for football players. None of them got caught up in size, speed, any of that stuff other than just give me good players. And even Coach Knoll was like that as well, from what I could gather. I only met Coach Knoll a couple times, but you hear the stories of what he always demanded. And he wanted football players. And I can't speak that enough. I know we live in an analytic, objective world right now, and that's cool.
I don't like it.
I get it, but that's kind of where things are going. And all due respect, I understand that, but and you guys know this because you played at that level. You're not thinking about when that ball snapped, you're reacting. You're
Right.
not thinking
What's the
about
percentage of
tendency.
this coming, this, that, and another?
No, the ball snapped. I got 2 seconds to make a decision, and maybe 2.5 seconds to make a play.
Right.
And I used to always tell our analytic folks, when you can quantify the intangibles, then we got something, because that intangible of being a winning football player who loves the game, you can't quantify that. That's just something that we have to witness and take into account for, because, like I said, all them players you mentioned before, they all had that, that love of the game.
Yeah. Well,
No,
Kev,
that's
man,
awesome.
definitely appreciate your time, man. Before we let you go, you're no longer in the front office with the Pittsburgh Steelers, but I know personally you've been doing some nice work behind the scenes. Can you tell our viewers a little bit about your new role that you have really embraced, from start to finish so far?
Yeah, well, when I stepped away, I didn't want to be part of the football, because I don't think that's fair to, Omar, who ended up being the GM, or Coach Tomlin. I don't want to be looking over anybody's shoulders, but if they have questions, of course, we'll talk and, share thoughts and ideas, and that's fine. But what I did want to be involved with, what the program that we started, it's called Lend a Hand, and it's designed to help our Steeler alumni transition into life after football. Pat, you're not there yet. BMac went through it. When that game's over, I mean, it takes a while to find that next phase of life. And what we're trying to do, and again, we have no jurisdiction because the guys are no longer under contract or anything like that, but we just try to point them in the direction they need to be moving in if they're looking for whatever, career, education, medical help, psychological help, you name it, we'll try to guide them. We meet once a month. BMac's been part of those. And we'll have different professionals present on a given topic. Like the last couple, one was on continuing education. The one before that was on sleep studies. We've done everything. We get a professional to present, and then we let the guys do Q&A, and then we, the administrative types, get off the call and give them the locker room back so that they can interact and catch up with each other. We're fortunate enough to do that one with Troy a couple of weeks ago. Troy was doing it, and we talked about the community efforts that we want to be involved with. And Troy did a great thing called the Resilience Bowl back here, and that was something we want to continue to grow and build with. But really, just trying to help our guys help each other, and then maybe branch that off into the community or even into the current team, because there's things that you guys, the alums, can teach our rookies. And we had a nice interaction on the first OTA day where we got to interact with the current team because they can help each other, and it helps us to give back to that group.
Yeah,
well, that's awesome, Kev.
You're doing a great job, man. The opportunity to get on the call and interact with players that we played with, players that are older than us, players that are younger than us, all coming together and, just talking, because there are a lot of, things that a lot of us are going through that we don't know because we don't come together to talk. But you've given us a platform to do so. So I applaud you for that. And it's been wonderful. So for any former Steeler that might, catch wind of this interview, definitely, when you get a chance, reach out, find someone to get in contact with. Because you're welcome. Because once a Steeler, you're always a Steeler. You know what I mean? And I told Pat P about that before he became a Steeler. It's something about our brotherhood that makes that organization, that makes the city, that makes the team super special. Not taking anything away from any other organization, but you guys know how it is. When you are part of that family, it hits different. So thank you for that. Thank you for giving us your time today. Some cool insight with former GM of the Pittsburgh Steelers, two-time Super Bowl champion, Kevin Colbert. For all our viewers, man, if you want to hit us up in our comment section, we definitely welcome that. Great football talk, some insight from one of the best to ever do it while he was in the National Football League. And I know we talked about potential Hall of Famers and everything like that. We can't forget about you. I think when it's all said and done, when your time is there, you should get in the Hall of Fame as well, based on your job, putting together championship rosters. We talked about the key
Hall of Fame players.
Come on, man. I don't know if there's another GM that has done what you've been able to do under those lights, because when you're the GM for the Pittsburgh Steelers, it's different lights.
On, baby.
Yeah, the pressure's on, as you know, Kevin. But, man, I salute you for everything that you've done. And also, too, taking a chance on me, giving me an opportunity to play in the National Football League.
Trust me, I appreciate that. But, I'm going to give you another name, Art Rooney Jr. Art Rooney Jr. was, again, as you mentioned, the Steelers didn't have a GM, but he was the GM with Coach Noel. And put those great 70s teams together. And he's been nominated for the Hall a few times. He hasn't gotten in, but if there's anybody that deserves a Hall of Fame, it's Art Rooney Jr. by far, because nobody's ever matched the 4 and 6 years. And he had the greatest draft in NFL history. Where he had, 5 Hall of Famers, 4 draft picks, and a Donnie Shell as a college free agent. The great Bill Nunn is already in there because Nunn changed the way the Steelers were drafted, with some of his insights into the smaller schools where Nunn could break some barriers. But Nunn and Art Rooney Jr. worked together with a gentleman named Dick Haley, Tom Modrak. Those guys put together, those great teams in the 70s, and boy, they need to be applauded. And my hope is for Art Rooney Jr. someday to get into that hall, because he certainly deserves it.
No question. Well said. Couldn't say it even better, man. But thank you, Kevin, once again. I'll definitely be in contact, in touch with you. Thank you for your time.
We got to get Pat P. We got to get Pat P. back to work. Come on, now you keep on that golf course.
Get him off the golf course. Get him back to work.
Hey, Kev,
so you can get a laptop.
Hey, Kev, I went and played a round of golf today. I shot 75. And my boys told me, man, say you need to get your ass back on the football field because you're taking all our money.
Yeah, you're getting too good at golf, and that's right. That's right, BMac. If he gets another crack, he got to get a new laptop.
A new laptop, man. Too much money not to have a new laptop, man.
That's right. That'll be part of the signing bonus.
Yes, sir. No question. All right, Kevin. Well, thank you for your time, man. Have a great night.
All right, you guys have a better one. Thank you.
All right, Kev.
Yeah, money, ain't that funny? I got haters, yeah, they watching, but I know they love me. Money, ain't that funny? I got haters, yeah, they watching, but I know they love me. Riding around the city, plastic cup of C-Rock, bigger and I'm blacker, I am on that Chris Rock.